Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to build a custom, built-in style, high-quality bookshelf. So the first step in creating your own bookshelf is to design it. Input your exterior bookshelf dimensions, add how many bays that you want so you can make it really any width and not worry about shelves sagging. And we've also upgraded it so you can add a top and an inset bottom to your designs. So here's the diagrams that came with my bookshelf, and I'm doing a double design because my bookshelf width is greater than 36 inches and I don't want shelves to sag, so I went ahead and put that center divider in. I'm using a kreg and 3/4 inch pocket holes for attaching my shelf boards to my uprights. This is my Kreg Foreman, but you can also use a manual Kreg jig. For the bookshelf assembly, I'm going to have my husband help me. This is a really big project, so having the extra set of hands, it makes things go a lot faster because you don't have to clamp as much, and it's always more fun to work with your hubby. So this is the top of the bookshelf. I put the pocket holes facing upward since it's going to be at 80 inches tall and you'll never see that. And then all the shelves below that will be right at about 5'5". So I'm just going to put the pocket holes on the bottom side where, unless you're really short, you won't see it as well. I'm using 1¼ inch pocket hole screws. These are the coarse thread ones. Notice with shelf help, all the plywood front edges are finished, so I won't have to go back and finish those. I use a stop block that just helps me when I'm attaching the shelves, and it keeps things consistent and I don't have to mark as many. This bookshelf ended up being quite a bit bigger than I was expecting it to be. When you use the shelf configurator and you just put in your dimensions, sometimes you can get yourself in a little trouble because you end up building something a lot bigger than you were expecting. So this is really good because I'm going to give this system to my mom and she's going to put it in her dining room, and it's kind of going to double as a craft station so she can turn her dining room into a sewing room or store a lot of decor and seasonal items in there as well. So gravity is a really smart tool to use when you're working. So I'm just going to move that first bookshelf down onto the floor, and then I'll start assembling the second bookshelf. So the most important thing here with this joint is making sure that the two shelves on either side of the center divider are lining up perfectly. If not, the human eye will notice it. So I'm just lining it all up and using the stop block as a guide, and then driving the pocket hole screws into the center divider. All right, so now we're going to flip it all the way over back onto the workbench. And again, really thankful to have an extra set of hands here because this is a gigantic project. Can you see how nice and square and straight everything looks? I used to build a lot of bookshelves out of 1x12s, but I've stopped doing that because the 1x12s will always have a crown or a cup to them, or they end up twisting out and the stuff doesn't stay on the shelf straight. So I really like this plywood system. It just gives such a nice end product. While my husband helped with the pocket holes, I went ahead and cut a bunch of base supports and drilled pocket holes in it. This is just going to add some structure to the shelves. I'm also going to add some blocking to the top for crown molding. You can integrate some space up top for crown molding. I just kind of decided to add the crown molding at the last minute, so I'm going to add that 1x2 to give me some space to attach it. I'm using a 1¼ inch nail and glue in the Ryobi Airstrike nailer to attach that. Now for cutting the plywood. So cutting 1/4 inch plywood for the back is so much simpler and easier than cutting 3/4 inch plywood. One, it's just thinner, so it's lighter and easier to work with. Two, you don't have to be as precise because it's just going on the back. It's not part of the structure. It's just being attached to the back, and I actually make mine a little small so you don't see it. All right, so I'm gonna start adding the back. I use glue, and I like to nail and glue to every single fixed shelf because the back can add structure. I mark the sides where every shelf is located. That way, once I put the 1/4-inch plywood back panels on, I can simply mark where the shelves are located with a straight edge between my two marks, and then I know where to nail. This is actually underlayment. It was about half the price of 1/4-inch hardwood plywood, and since I'm painting it, this was a really good compromise. I think it was about $17 a sheet. This project actually doesn't need a back. The only reason that I'm putting a back on it is her wall color might be different than the shelf is going to be, and it helps keep the contents inside the shelf, and it is just like a nice upgrade. It'll definitely look better with the back. So I had to do it in 2 pieces because it is bigger than a full sheet of plywood. Notice that I spliced it on a shelf location so you won't see that from the inside. Okay, so now we're gonna try to flip this thing over, hopefully, and get it up on the buckets. I'm pretty short, so it's really hard for me to reach the middle of a big project like this, so I'll elevate it on something shorter so I can reach it. If I was taller, I would probably want to use sawhorses. Now for the crown on the top. If you had a chance to watch my crown molding video a couple of weeks ago, it really simplifies the process. You only need 2 saw adjustments to make all 90-degree cuts. It really simplified it, and what I'll do is I'll make those compound miter cuts first, then I'll mark let them run wild, then I'll mark the excess and then cut that off and attach it. One thing I will say about this project is I wish I'd used a bigger crown molding because the project is so big. The crown that I put on it, it felt a little bit small. But I do live in rural Alaska, so coming up with a different crown molding is no easy task, and I think it looked just fine in the end. And then for the baseboard on the bottom, I'm using a 5 1/4-inch baseboard, and I just cut the one end first at a 45-degree bevel cut, marked the second end at the short point, went back to the saw and chopped it down and dry fit it again and nailed it on with 3/4-inch brad nails. And then I just repeated those same steps for the 2 sides of the base to finish it out. So this process is very similar to how you could build just about any built-in. You can add doors, you can add drawers to it, you can add a face frame on the front. Really, the options are unlimited. This is about the most basic version of this application. My mom wanted a white paint, so there it is. And I think she's gonna be very happy with this gigantic, sturdy beauty. What do you think? This bookshelf is all done, and it is humongous. It was big when we were building it, but when we turned it around, I was like, oh my goodness, it is a giant project. It's amazing that we were able to build this in just one day on top of all of our other obligations. So I'm leaving a link in the description below for the free template that you can use, and we'll see you next Monday with a brand new tutorial.